Hello, everybody. So we are continuing on with our discussion of Chapter 15 that deals with eclecticism in interior design and architecture. And this particular piece is by Richard Morris Hunt. Isn't it spectacular? This is the dining room of the larger house, or shall we call it a mansion, known as the Breakers. The date on this is 1895. So Richard Morris Hunt is actually known for being the first American to attend the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. He then moved back to the States, settling in New York City. Now, I'm going to spell out École des Beaux-Arts if you're interested, because I know a lot of you have been asking about this, wondering what the École des Beaux-Arts means. And guys, it literally means the School of the Beautiful Arts. And so very, very quickly, let me go ahead and just spell this out for you. All right, so here's how you spell out École des Beaux-Arts. It literally means School of the Beautiful Arts. All right, so and guys, I'm sorry you're hearing my dogs clickety-clacketing in the background on my hardwood floor. Sorry about that. So after he went to the School of Arts and Beautiful Arts in Paris, by the way, that was a school that you would not only train for design and architecture, but also in painting and sculpture and even printmaking. He moved back to the States, settling in New York City. He became a well-known architect, and he was known for creating mansions for families who made their wealth from new industries. Again, this is called the nouveau riche people who were considered quote-unquote new money, rather than having money handed down to them through many, many generations. However, they wanted their homes to look like they came from quote-unquote old money. All right. So this structure was created for the Vanderbilts. Cornelius Vanderbilt, was the one that headed it up. He lived from approximately 1794 to 1877, and he actually established the family fortune in steamships and later in the New York Central Railroad, which was a pivotal development in the industrial growth of the nation during the late 19th century. The Vanderbilts continue to have money today. When I was in 8th grade, the new jean designer was Gloria Vanderbilt. Everybody needed to have a Gloria Vanderbilt pair of jeans. And of course, you might know her son, Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper is actually a reporter who is regularly seen on nighttime news shows. All right, so going on from there. The Vanderbilt family were among the most prominent industrialists of America, and they were very, very influenced by their travels and very, very influenced by 16th century Italian palaces. Think of the Medici Palace that we saw before. So, for significance, please, influenced by 16th century Italian palaces. Influenced by 16th century Italian palaces. All right. Now, this particular style is also falling under again, that trend towards revivalism, and this is actually called Renaissance Revival. It is also called Beaux-Arts, again, meaning beautiful arts, and you see it spelled right here on your list. So that's another significance I'd like you to know, please, is that this style is called Renaissance Revival or Beaux-Arts, meaning beautiful arts. The Breakers is actually the grandest of Newport, Connecticut's summer cottages. Yes, it is a cottage, and a symbol of the Vanderbilt's family's social and financial preeminence in the turn-of-the-century America. I will give you another image here, and then we'll come back to this, okay? This is the exterior of it, and you can see that Italian feeling to it. So it had 70 rooms. The mansion boasted approximately 65,000 square feet of living space, and the home was constructed between 1893 and 1895 at the then astronomical cost of more than $7 million. Today, it would be over $150 million to create today, adjusting, of course, for inflation. So, given that, as the previous mansion that used to be on the property that was owned by Pierre Lorillard IV, it burned down in 1892. Cornelius Vanderbilt II then insisted that the building be made as fireproof as possible, and as such, the structure of the building used steel trusses and no wooden parts. So again, when this particular piece was made, guys, what we see is that the land was purchased by Vanderbilt after the mansion that was owned by Lorillard burned down. However, Vanderbilt was so let's say, superstitious that a fire would again occur, what he insisted was that the building actually have a steel frame rather than a wood frame, therefore making it as fireproof as possible. In fact, we also know that he required that the furnace of the house be located away from the house under a nearby avenue called Ochre Point. In winter, this area where the furnace is actually in front of the main gate, over the furnace, snow never accumulates. Ice always melts, which is so interesting, right? So, significance, please, is that it used a steel frame skeleton to be fireproofed, okay? To be as fireproof as you possibly can build a building, right? Okay, so used a steel frame skeleton in order to make it more fireproof. All right, and you guys can see it. Isn't it so grand? I mean, it looks like it could be a museum. It looks like it could be a library. It looks even like an official building for a governor's house or even for some type of governmental structure. It just is so very grand, and it very, very much recalls those Italianate and Italian palaces that we've seen before this semester. So let's go back here. When you're looking at this structure, you see the dining room itself. It's actually quite, well, I shouldn't say quite small, but compared to their other mansion called Biltmore, this is the Breakers, not Biltmore. The Biltmore dining room is absolutely massive and seats up to 60 people at the dining table. As you can see, this only seats about 10. So, but you can see plenty more spaces, and I'm sure there are leaves that could be put into the dining table, as there is plenty of room to build more. Now, get it? Built more? Ha ha ha. All right, so given that, look at the ginormous rug that you see here, the incredible flooring that took lots of labor and lots of construction. We have marble columns here. We also have what look like Corinthian capitals, again, very Italian. We have the feeling of a dental molding here, a feeling of an entablature. We have a little reference to the Baroque with the oval here, and the extreme amount of stucco ornamentation here, also very, very much recalling that Baroque ornamentation. And so then, therefore, you really have a mixture of styles as well, but leaning more towards the Italian Renaissance. So, and the chandeliers are gorgeous, aren't they? Let's move on. Now, here is the billiard room, and again, you see a reference towards columns, even though they're not columns at all here. They look more like pilasters, but the emphasis is obviously more on this kind of pseudo capital. And then you also see this sense of the rounded arches here that are not obviously functional. They are more decorative here, but the extreme use of marble all over it, as well as the gorgeous Italian mantelpiece piece that you see here. All right, so what we do know is that designers created an interior using marble imported from Italy, but also marble imported from Africa, plus rare woods and mosaics from countries all over the world. Because when you are the Vanderbilts and you have no issue with spending money, why not go ahead and spend it? Can you imagine being an interior designer today and literally being told the sky's the limit, go for it? Let me show you another image of the house. This is the entryway, and isn't it spectacular? Again, you see pilasters that are topped with pseudo capitals here that look very, very Corinthian. You have a feeling of dental molding up here, a feeling of entablature, smaller colonnettes, again made of marble, and just the exquisite, rich, kind of heavy, massive feeling that we saw with those Italian palaces that we studied during our Renaissance lectures. Very, very massive, and literally using all kinds of materials that were imported from all the way around the world in order to be as accurate as possible. So, significance, please, is that materials from all over the world were imported. Okay, materials from all over the world were imported. In the year of its completion in 1895, the Breakers was the largest, most opulent house in a, yes, summer resort, considered the social capital of America. The Breakers is one of the few surviving works of Hunt that has not been demolished in the last century and is therefore valuable for its rarity as well as its architectural excellence. The Breakers was considered Hunt's final work. Today, the house is designated as a National Historic Landmark, as are many of the images that structures that we've seen this semester. Let me see if I have another one for you. Yeah, look at this. Guys, that mantelpiece is literally an ancient Roman mantelpiece. Literally an ancient Roman mantelpiece. If you remember the Pantheon, remember all the coffers in the ceiling, you can see that reference here above as well. You might even remember the different styles of ancient Roman wall painting. You can get a little bit of that feeling up here. Look at the exquisite inlays of wood and marble all the way around the structure, the room itself, and the very, very opulent fabrics of damask and such on all of the furniture. It looks very, very comfortable. This reminds me of a very masculine, let's say, smoker's room, or like a smoking room or a hunter's room, or where men would gather to smoke cigars and talk about politics and their wives. Just very, very rich feeling. Let me see if I have one more for you. No, I do not. But let's go back over here, guys. So Hunt was very, very much known as an interior designer and architect, and his style tried to be as historically authentic as possible, but also allowing for, quite honestly, comfort. The comfort and the level of the chairs here we did not find during the Renaissance, as you guys know. But however, Hunt's big claim to fame was that he was hired by these very, very rich families in America to build these palatial palaces. Now, quite honestly, if you are someone that comes from new money, then that means, and you're trying to pretend that you had old money, then what better way to recall a style that dates back to some of the greatest architecture and some of the greatest artists of all time, which of course was the Italian Renaissance. So, one last significance, please. One last significance, please. Excuse me. Excuse me. Is that Hunt is known for his mansions made for the wealthy in the U.S. Again, Hunt is known for his mansions made for the wealthy in the U.S. Would you live there? I think I would. Maybe just for a little while. All right. So let's move on to our next image, though. So the next image here is actually not a private house. It actually is a public space, and as you can see, it is the Pennsylvania Railway Station, and this was created by McKim, Mead, and White. Stanford White is the man that I told you about before, who is an architect that worked as a designer for many other, well, I should say many other, several other of the artists that we've discussed before. But remember, Stanford White was also married to the woman, Miss Evelyn Nesbit, and how I told you how she was having an affair and how he went to Rockefeller Center in New York City and shot her lover dead in front of everybody in this restaurant. Yeah, this is that guy. So McKim, Mead, and White. This is the Pennsylvania station. The interior is the image that your book uses, but I'll show you the exterior as well as the actual boarding areas for the railroads. 1904 to 1910. So this also deals with iron and steel developments, but as you can see, there is no iron or steel to be seen here at all. McKim, Mead, and White was an architectural and design firm that were in part responsible for the hold that academic classicism had on American public architecture and design for half a century. So they are known for their very, very classical inspirations. And if you were to look at this, this should feel, quite honestly, truly not that much different from the baths of Caracalla or even the baths of Diocletian, those ginormous bathhouses that we saw from the ancient Roman period. So, significance, please. Influence of ancient Greek and Roman architecture. Influence of ancient Greek and Roman architecture. What makes this obviously a little bit different is that it has been electrified, of course, and of course that there are very, very large windows. Not that the Romans weren't using large windows, but the glazers make it very, very different, the actual glass in the window. Now, for this particular photograph, I'm actually glad that your book actually did include a black and white, because I love using this image, because as you can see, this particular photograph was taken at a time where film exposure times were not fast enough to actually capture movement. So you actually see a lot of people actually ghosted here. They are not real ghosts. They just didn't stick around long enough and still enough for their image to actually fully develop on the photograph itself. So you would come in from the outside, over here, you would come down, and then you would essentially come over here, buy your tickets, and then you would find an area where they would tell you what gate to, what entrance area, and then what area goodness, what were you going to call it? Goodness, I only lived in New York City 3 years. Why can I not remember this? Platform. There we go. What platform your train would be on. Goodness, that's so bad. All right, guys. But clearly you see these monumental columns, and they might remind you of the colossal columns of Michelangelo. Yes, without a doubt. But going back to ancient Rome, not to Renaissance. And of course, we have the reference to the Corinthian capitals, the rounded arches. You have a feeling of a keystone bracket in through here, the rounded arches here, a sense of groin vaults in through the top, the coffers, and just very, very elaborate. It would have made it quite special to walk into, and would have made the person who is traveling by railway travel a brand new form of travel that was just, even though it had been around for a while, the main sources for railway travel was really for transport of materials and goods, not necessarily for people. So then to have the ability to get onto a train and move actually from place to place by way of train was a very, very modern way of travel. So you would have been quite dressed up to go. So let me show you the exterior here. All right, so this is the exterior, what it looked like back then. Unfortunately, the facade no longer exists. They have completely changed the facade today. And yep, I used to, when I was living in New York City, twice a week, would enter in through the entrance that is right about here now. And then I would get in and go down and get my ticket and find out where my gate and my platform was, and go off to Newark, New Jersey to teach. All right, so actually a train station versus a subway station when it was created by McKim, Mead and White. However, today, Penn Station, as it's now called, literally butts up against the Madison Square Garden. I'm sure you guys know, if you've heard about the Madison Square Garden before. Major entertainment events are held there. But also, the Penn Station now also very, very much hooks up with all of the subway travel in New York City as well. So as you guys can see, we have a sense of a temple front and through here, through all the major entrances, even though you have a little bit more of a Baroque treatment on the main entrance here. A sense, obviously, of an entablature, and of course you have the reference to almost a little bit of a stylobate, the way that the side of the sidewalk steps up. This is it from another view. It was absolutely massive. So today we would have a Madison Square Garden right over through here. Okay. Now, going on a little bit further here, this is actually the area where you do see iron exposed. And this is the area where you would come out after buying your ticket. I shouldn't say come out, but go into after buying your ticket. And then you would take the stairs down to the individual platforms where your trains were. Okay. But notice that even though this is very, very much exposed iron, it also very, very much conveys the idea of ancient architecture with barrel vaults and rounded arches, and even the idea of groin vaults here. So another significance I'd like you to know, please, is that it uses iron and steel construction that is exposed. Again, iron and steel construction that is exposed. It also, because it was so large and people were very, very interested in railway travel, it shows that not only was railway, goodness, say that fast 3 times, railway travel very, very popular at this time, but it was also a brand new technology for us to get to from point A to point B, for me to get from Manhattan to Newark, New Jersey to teach. When I lived in New York City, I didn't have a car, and most people back then didn't, but they could get there rather than taking a horse and carriage, or even for those few people that did have cars could get there. But quite honestly, railway travel would have been much faster than that. So it also shows that new fascination with railway travel. And so then what you have here is something that's called a train shed. A train shed, literally a place where trains were not only stored, but where that you and I could find our trains by way of a shelter that would be large and be able to house all of the coming and goings of those trains, so to speak. So another significance, please, is that it indicates the fascination with train travel or railway travel. Again, shows the fascination with train, or you can say railway travel. All right, let's move on. Again, very utilitarian on the inside of the main entryway, very much covered up. But where we see the gateway starting to form, that is when the iron and steel becomes very apparent, and they actually begin to use it not only in a functional way, but also in a decorative way. I think it's quite beautiful. All right, so let's move on to, oh my goodness, you guys, one of my favorite places in the world, and this is the New York Public Library, and more specifically, this is the Rose Reading Room, and it was designed by Carrère and Hastings. Okay, so the New York Public Library main branch is located on 53rd and 42nd, excuse me, not 53rd, 5th Avenue and 42nd Streets, where they cross. Today, we know it as the Stephen A. Schwarzman Building, and unfortunately, as I'm speaking right now, the building is actually under a reconstruction. And so the building that takes up in a ginormous full New York City city block, it has literally begun to be too small. And not only that, the massive amount of storing of books that it has, which goes 7 floors under the ground level, is no longer large enough to hold all the books that it has. So, but let's step back away from that and let's go back to when it was built. So, the building itself consists of 4 major research libraries, and the system itself, the New York Public Library system, includes 88 branches around New York City, throughout not only Manhattan, but also the other boroughs of the city itself, like where I lived, which was Queens. All right, so Bronx, Manhattan, and Staten Island as well, and obviously all around New York City. This particular building is actually referred to as the main branch, and let me go back. That is an image of a slight snow coming up there. This is the area that actually faces 5th Avenue, and my school was further down south, so I would be coming down from about 7 blocks this way, and I would be walking up those a couple times a week. And so this is called the main branch. You guys can see it is known for its lions that you see here. Do not confuse it with the Chicago Art Institute that also has lions. Those lions are meant to be fearful, but also strong, and very, very much recalling the essentially the king of the beast, so to speak. And as you guys can see, it also has very, very much an influence of ancient Greece and ancient Rome. So let me go a little bit further here. The style itself is actually known as Beaux-Arts, okay? So Beaux-Arts meaning beautiful arts. And again, it's a mixture here of a little bit of Baroque style and drama mixed with the classical style. So significance, please, is that it is known as the Beaux-Arts style. If you need to remember how to spell that, just look at your notes from when we talked about the École de Beaux-Arts just a couple images ago, okay? So again, known as the Beaux-Arts style. It houses one of the most outstanding research collections in the United States in the humanities and social sciences, as well as a wonderful circulating children's collection as well. You're not, usually most of the time you're not able to check out books, even though I know that there was a time that they did check out books, but this is why they have that tremendous reading room. The site of the building was actually chosen for the new home of the public library that was close to the Croton Reservoir. It was a popular strolling place that occupied a 2-block section of 5th Avenue between 40th and 42nd Streets. Dr. John Shaw Billings, which was one of the most brilliant librarians of his day, was named director of the library. So Billings was the one that would actually direct the design and the structure of the building, and he hired Carrère and Hastings. His design, he knew exactly what he wanted. He briefly sketched out on a scrap of paper, and essentially that little drawing became the early blueprint for the majestic structure that we now know as, with this very, very landmark building. By the way, for those of you that are into fashion, and you guys know the New York Fashion Week that is held in Bryant Park, literally if we were to keep on going here, come to the edge of the building, which is at the corner of 42nd and 5th, go down about half a block, literally on the same block that the structure is on, you will come across a small park that is where Bryant Park is, which is where New York Fashion Week is actually held. And even though I never went to it because I avoided it like a plague because it was just filled with all kinds of people all the time, I kind of wish I would have participated in that, but I didn't. Oh well, that's okay. So going on there, So he knew it would be a landmark building, and so then he created the idea of lions being on the outside, and again, about an educated, intelligent, well, not necessarily educated, but certainly an intelligent animal. Billings' plan called for an enormous reading room topped with topping on the top of 7 floors of stacks. Stacks meaning the stacks of books that it hold. He also wanted to have the most rapid delivery system of books in the world to get those resources to the person that called them up. He wanted that delivery system to be as swift as possible to get the books into the hands. Now, of the people that wanted them, now I have had books called up from the different 7 floors of the stacks in a matter, and have them in my hand in a matter of minutes. And there's been other times where they've been very, very busy, where I've literally had to wait up to an hour and a half for them. So it again depends on how busy they are. So I kid you not, when you go to the Rose Reading Room, which is on the 2nd floor, let me go back there. Okay, so there's our Rose reading room. What you would do is you would actually go to the 2nd floor. Let me back up. Let's go to the entrance. So this is what the entrance looks like. So you and I are entering in through that front entrance right here. This is a little turnstile. We come in. Today we would have our items checked for any kind of weapon, and then of course we would go through a metal detector, and then you could go up this way. There is another exactly the same stairway on this side. Guys, if you know Sex and the City, when Carrie Bradshaw was going to get married, even though Mr. Big decided not to do it that day, she is shown actually walking down the stairs right here. Her wedding was going to be here at the New York Public Library, but if you guys know the story of Sex and the City, Big chickened out. So then you would walk up, or could take an elevator, which is right in through here, in the back of the columns here, and walk up to the 2nd floor. And then as you walk up to the 2nd floor, you then enter into this area here, which is filled with wonderful old tables. And you guys can see again this kind of Italianate feeling to it. These wonderful, wonderful chandeliers that I believe are still original. And you see lots of reference books in through here. But normally you and I might find like a card catalog when it was first made and look up at little individual pieces of paper. Today, obviously, you see computers actually fill these tables, and then we're able to enter into and get online onto the digital card catalog. We would then take a piece of paper, write down the book number, ISBN number, etc., and then go up to one of the people behind this desk here. Absolutely exquisite. You guys can see columns and wood. It is absolutely filled them with the most gorgeous wood. They then would essentially then call the book up for you. That number would then be put into a computer, okay? And then that would go down to people who are in the stacks down below. I kid you not, it's 7 feet under the ground level. And in general, you are not allowed to go down there at all. The book is retrieved for you from workers of the library. I do believe that as a tour, you can go down to the stacks, but I never went. Something else I should have done. And then from there, you enter in through the doors that you can barely see right through here from the area, and then you come into this ginormous room, which is called the Rose Reading Room. You then would wait in through this area until up and through here you actually saw a little how shall I say this, screen that would then have your number call up. I would be calling up from anywhere from 1 to 10 books. And then once I would see my number up here, I would go up and get one of my books and then come back and sit. Quite honestly, I love to sit right about here every time I went. There's also another area that looks exactly like this on the other side. So almost as much room as you see here is right in through here. And then back behind us, back behind the photographer's shoulder, is actually another small little reading room that's dedicated more to the arts. And I did a lot of my graduate study research in that smaller room because even though this is a very quiet space, in its quietness, it can get loud, if that makes sense. And I liked kind of hanging back in the private little room for the arts. So yeah, I was kind of snobby that way. I have to admit it. I mean, goodness, look at this, wouldn't you? Just absolutely gorgeous. So let me tell you a little bit more for this particular structure. And guys, I'd like you to know for significance, please, it had the most rapid delivery system of books in the world. Okay, or you can say the quickest delivery system of books in the world. All right. As you can see, it is absolutely adorned with classical details. The tables that you can see here were specifically built for it. You do see, obviously, storage system here, but also in through here. And then All right, so I'm going to show you some details now. So as I mentioned before, it is under a major reconstruction, and we'll see what happens here. I hope that they keep this reading room the same because it's such an amazingly historic site. So as you can see, we have some scaffolding going on. You see somebody on the top of the scaffolding right over here as they begin to work on the main painting that is in the reading room. And of course, the painting that you can see here on the bottom right is in the ceiling. Pardon me while I adjust my position in my noisy chair here. And guys, that painting is actually called Morning. And because, of course, if you're pursuing education, it doesn't start in the middle day. You should start in the morning, which I think is interesting. But look at the amount of gorgeous ornamentation that you see all the way around the ceiling. Now, the extensive amount of ornamentation is absolutely astounding, absolutely gorgeous. But the amount of craftsmanship and engineering that went into the design is just, in my opinion, just absolutely priceless. Even with the design of the chairs that you can see here to the left, from personal experience, anybody who's sitting down for 8 hours at a time doing research will get sore with any kind of chair. But quite honestly, those chairs are so comfortable. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. You guys can see that they're grooved in to allow for the form of the human body, but also it's very, very curved. We don't have any straight lines here, which is also very smart because obviously they want you to stay and do your work and to not have to leave because you're uncomfortable. Notice that those curving lines in the back recall the klezmos, again going back to the ancient Greek chair. Let me show you some more details here. So here, what's interesting, from the area that I usually sat on, you would see a clock, which is nice to keep you on time. But as you moved into the Rose reading room, again, from your door right in through here, from where you would actually go into the digital card catalog and go in. As you move into the Rose reading room, this would be on the entrance here. As you guys can see, it says a good book is the precious lifeblood of a master spirit, embalmed and treasured up on purpose to life beyond life. And it's just a great inspiration as you're moving into this structure to say, keep on working towards your education, keep on working towards your goals. I think that all of us should use this, especially when you're in college and you're thinking every other day, oh, what am I doing? All right, so, but is it not just fabulous? And then when you look here at the main area, again, you would come up right up and through here to get your book. And then they would then deliver it here, and every now and then they would deliver it on one of these side windows here. So absolutely gorgeous, and even special collections. In the back room that I was telling you about, in the arts room, I was actually able to view literally some of the first runs of prints, not only by Dürer, but also artists such as, and I'm going to forget his name now, Klinger, several other artists that I wrote about, even George Grosz. So they have some amazing holdings. It's not just a library. All right, so significance, please. Known for its exquisite craftsmanship. Another significance I'd like you to know is that it's considered one of the world's grandest libraries. One of the world's grandest libraries. So following an open competition among the city's prominent architects, the relatively unknown firm of Carrere and Hastings was selected to design and construct the new library. The result was regarded as the epitome of Beaux-Arts design. It was the largest marble structure ever attempted in the United States. The exterior is large and obviously covered in marble, as you guys know. Before construction could begin, however, some 500 workers had to spend 2 years dismantling the reservoir and preparing the site. The cornerstone was finally laid into place on November 10th, 1902. Let me show you the outside again here. President William Howard Taft actually gave the opening speech at the library in 1911. It was one of the nation's leading research libraries, even still today, for which over a century had stood as a symbol of open and free access to information and opportunity. Don't forget that An open public library was a relatively new idea in the 1800s. So, and in the latter 1800s, we talked about this with the Bibliothèque Saint-Geneviève. So then when we look at this, that symbol of open and free education, what a wonderful idea, open to everybody. So the centerpiece of the Fifth Avenue and 42nd Street building is the magnificent reading room, as you guys know. And again, it has 7 floors of stacks underneath the structure itself. Thousands upon thousands of books, and actually I should say hundreds of thousands of books, and it really is considered a priceless collection of books and artifacts. And yes, you can get married there if you so choose to do so. I would love that, wouldn't you? I think it'd be fabulous. All right, so another one last significance, please. It was the largest marble structure in the United States. At its time, of course, the largest marble structure in the United States for its time. Make sure you guys are writing for its time, because there are larger ones that have come up. All right, Metropolitan Museum of Art. All right, sorry, I had to get a little sip of water. So now let's move on to another work of art that I think you will enjoy, because it's something unlike we have seen before at all. And this is the last one that's on our list. This is called the Saarinen House. And your book has a slightly different image. Excuse me, it's a photograph of the exact same room, guys, but it's at a slightly different angle, so just keep that in mind. So Eliel Saarinen is the architect here for this structure. It is his house. The date on this is 1920 to 30. And his style is, in this particular house, known as a mixture of arts and crafts movement with the Art Deco elements. It was designed, well, let me go ahead and have you make that a significance, please. It's a mixture of arts and crafts with Art Deco, okay? It's a mixture of arts and crafts, which is one particular movement that you already know of, but also Art Deco. Art Deco is 2 words, art and then deco, D-E-C-O. The Art Deco movement was not like Art Nouveau. Art Nouveau was very, very much about being suspicious of technology, even though they embraced iron, as you guys remember, Victor Horta and the Tassel House. Art Deco, that was really, really popular in the 1920s, very much embraced the machine, so much so that with Art Deco, they actually began to be very influenced by the machine. So you're going to see more of a streamlining of materials, not as much curvilinear lines, an emphasis on metals that recall machines. There was a fascination with automobiles, there was a fascination with trains, and there was a fascination with planes. So Art Deco usually shows very, very streamlined ideas, very much associated with with technology and machinery. So this shows a mixture of those styles. So it was designed in the late 1920s and located at the heart of Cranbrook Academy of Art. From 1930 through 1950, the Saarinen House served as the home and studio of the designer Eliel Saarinen, and he was Finnish and American, so from Finland and America. Cranbrook's first resident architect was Saarinen, and the Art Academy's first president. He was also the head of the architecture department. And his wife, Loja Saarinen, was the Academy's first head of the weaving department. So they are very, very much tied up with art and design and architecture. So then therefore that style in their house is going to reflect that. So significance, please, is that the house reflects the couple's interest in art, design, and architecture. Again, the couple's house, or you can say the house, reflects the couple's interest in art, design, and architecture. All right. Another significance, please, is that he was a leader of the Cranbrook Academy of Art. Again, leader of the Cranbrook Academy of Art. So let me show you first the exterior so you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. Sorry. On the left, pretty unassuming, right? But remember that it had to be surrounded by Cranbrook Academy buildings, so it didn't necessarily want to stand out. Plus, you don't necessarily want to say, hey, here lives the president of the school, or here lives your professor, right? So given that, what you're looking at here from the outside is actually a modern day restoration. There was some disrepair that was going on that they actually restored, and they're able to make it look nearly as much as they can to the original. Also, the interior features Saarinen original furnishings, including Eliel's delicately veneered furniture and Loja's sumptuous textiles. So keep your eye out for those as we're looking here. It also includes early furniture design by their son, whose name was Eero Saarinen. And Eero Saarinen was an architect, and if you were in my architecture class, you actually studied a few of his works, including the TWA terminal. He also designed the movable wings of the Milwaukee Art Museum. So we're talking about a family of artists. Now, let me go back to our original image here. So when you look at this, guys, he is, and they, including his wife, are designing every aspect of the structure, so, and the design of the elements in it as well. So even though we've used the term all-inclusive design, you might have noticed that when I'm using the term all-inclusive design or all-encompassing design, it's oftentimes of the English or even the American designers. However, when we're including more Northern European and even more Central European ideas, we tend to use the word Gesamtkunstwerk, as you guys know. So this is called a Gesamtkunstwerk. Again, it's a comprehensive work that showcases his and her proficiency in design on many of the elements inside the house. So Eliel took great pains, not planes, to design the entirety of his residence on the Cranbrook Academy of Arts campus, meaning that he oversaw the horticultural design of the structure. Okay, literally the horticultural design of the structure, the entire school, not just the house also. But what's also interesting, he designed many of the structures himself as well. So Loja made the textiles and Art Deco fireplace that you see here and designed them. What we also see to the right here is the reading nook. It is filled with ample natural light, having a prominence in the design, very, very simple, streamlined design. And also right outside, it showed a stepped garden that could be seen from multiple windows throughout the house on that particular side. The structure itself has a rectangular plan that is comprised of a series of asymmetrical spaces. And again, that just lends a sense of visual interest versus the very symmetrical spaces. So let's take a look at this for a second. So when we think about Art Deco, we're thinking more about straight lines, more geometric patterning versus Art Nouveau with its curving lines and its more natural forms. So as you look here with the textile that she designed, you can see the focus is really on rectangles. And then you move into the interior design of the rug itself, again focused on rectangles. The colors here are creams, almost like a soft gold, gray, and even almost like a cool gray versus a lighter warm-ish gray. Notice here with the furniture here, the emphasis still on those rectangles. Go into the fireplace itself, and again you see the focus on geometric patterning. Even the lighting design, you guys can see half round here. It's echoed in the light work here that you see, and then of course those colors are picked up not only in the furniture but also in the wall covering and the tapestry that's hung above the fireplace. So you really do have a Gesamtkunstwerk. Very, very warm here, very, very inviting. So guys, I'd like you to know for significance, please, it is a Gesamtkunstwerk. And again, I know that you know how to spell it because you've written it several times in other images that we've looked at. So it is a Gesamtkunstwerk. Very simple, very clean lines. Now here is a closer depiction of that reading room that was off over to the right earlier. You see a simple table here, and again notice that the sides of the chairs here actually pick up the motif that are on the little table over to the side here. Notice too we have that half round geometric forms of the lighting fixture The bookcases and the built-ins that you see here, again, very simple and very streamlined. Notice that the tapestry and upholstery that you see on the chair here is reflected in the larger, or excuse me, in the larger area here, as well as on the furniture that you see here to the side and the chairs that are on either side of the fireplace. So whoops, sorry about that. Again, very, very much considering how everything will work. Notice too that they use a very, very thin, very filmy window covering to allow light in, but also allow for a sense of privacy outside the home, because obviously the entire campus would be filled with students. And no offense to students, certainly no offense to you guys, but yes, there are times where I don't want to put on my professor hat all the time, so to speak. And I want to be able to have a moment that is private and to myself, especially inside my own home. So given that, let's go on to another view. Notice too, we continue on the theme of this continuing idea of the rectangle with warm tones and that little chevron that we see here. This is the edge of the globe that you saw earlier here. Okay, just to give you an idea of where we're at. All right, so again, matching chairs. The upholstery again continues to match. And then here is the dining area, and isn't that wonderful? Again, notice the half round geometric shape that is not only echoed in the globe, but also in the lighting fixtures that were directly behind us, so to speak. Obviously, we will have a round table, and the chairs will have that geometric quality that will pick up the geometric form in the upholstery, as well as the rectangular form of the inlays on the chairs. Notice too, the rug design also picks up that rectilinearity, there we go, as well as the rounded area by which the lighting fixture hangs, and the use of gold then with the uplighting effect will then come and hit the gold here, which then will be reflected with indirect lighting through here. I also love the treatment of the warm color in the individual niches where they plate objects of art, little sculptural things like plates and pottery and that type of thing, but also that there actually is lighting in the niches to actually highlight those objets d'art. I also love the use of the drapery here that pools on the floor. Notice that it seems to also match the upholstery here. Guys, I do not know if that is original or not, especially with the pooling feature. I do not know if they liked to pool their drapery back then or not. Somehow I'm thinking not. Notice too, the floor is parquet here, and because it's squares, it also picks up that geometric pattern all over the place. Let's go back here. So again, we have that view of the reading nook here, a little bit more of an emphasis on the sideboard that we see here. I do not know if this is a portrait of Legia or not. I would assume so, but again, don't quote me, I'm not exactly sure. And here we see a smaller room, and notice that the palette has changed. Okay, we have more of a soft green and a lighter, almost celadon color. The furniture here continues to be quite geometric and simple. And then we have some type of seating arrangement here, but again, notice the treatment of that half round geometric form of the lighting that again recalls all the other lighting in that previous room. So you really do have this Gesamtkunstwerk, and the color palette does change from room to room, but again, that kind of warmth that we see in that main room lends itself to an area where there would be a fireplace, and cooler tones where you're not going to have as much of that warmth, cozy feeling that you would normally want around a fireplace. So the emphasis, even though we do see some Art Nouveau influences here and there, the emphasis is quite honestly more on the Art Deco. Those streamlines, the reserved ornamentation, and the focus on geometric forms. So I would like to give you another significance, please, is that the focus is on streamlined geometric forms. Again, the focus is on streamlined geometric forms. All right, let me see. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I do want to say a little bit more. We do know that they had a very big enthusiasm for handcrafted objects. They loved because the school itself is actually located in near Detroit. They very, very much like to be part of Detroit's arts culture. And if you've ever heard of Pewabic pottery, we know that the Pewabic pottery factory is still there in Detroit. I actually have a small piece myself. Not tremendously expensive at all, actually. So they actually collected Pewabic pottery, and you see that peppered throughout the pieces. In fact, I want to say one of those pieces is actually right here. Do not quote me on that. And I also believe that one of the pieces in the dining room is also Pewabic pottery. If you're interested, let me spell out Pewabic for you if you're interested. And maybe when you're in Detroit next, you can check it out. Pewabic. All right. We also know that the bronze peacock-shaped fireplace for the log holders that you see right through here were also made locally. Art Deco touches such as the sleek lines, the indirect lighting fixtures also help create a very soothing feeling in that main room. And it also has a very strong nod to Finnish customs, where he was from, Finland, such as a rug draped over a bench that then is also used as a blanket. In the small dining room, I want to go back to that for a second. In the small dining room, the same shapes are used. Again, squares and rectangles and circles, even octagons, are found in the contour of the room. The room itself is octagonal, but then also throughout the structure, like I said, you can see those references to rectangles and squares and circles. So again, the gold leafing of the domed ceiling also captures that indirect light. Throughout the entire structure, you see soothing colors being used. Again, that moss green, that celadon, gray, russet, gold, off-white, these creamy colors. And again, very soothing colors, nothing bright that would kind of detract from the eye. So another significance, please, is that it uses a soothing palette throughout the structure. Another significance, please, soothing palette used throughout the structure. And then last significance, please. It shows an enthusiasm for handcrafted objects. Shows an enthusiasm for handcrafted objects. All right, everyone, that now ends our discussion of Chapter 15. Thank you very much for listening.